So when we last left off, the Autobots, Arachnid and RC were able to not only get Optimus, but restore his memories. So with that being said, let's continue. They're working their way through the corridor, making sure any Decepticons are pretty much clear to their path, making their way to a computer. And this is where RC actually head into the room. Arachnid is curious, even asking her, "What are you doing? We don't have time for this. The others need our assistance." To which this little RC notes that right now she has her orders from the big bot, and she begins downloading the Iacon database. It doesn't take her long, and RC states that they're ready to go. However, before they are able to even get to the entrance where the other monster bots are fighting, they have to deal with Shockwave, who says it would be illogical if he let them leave, and begins opening fire upon them from multiple angles, even utilizing his tank form to push them back. We would then go down to the battlefield. Keep in mind, this is still before any of the relic hunts takes place, and I am going to change a few things. But back on the battlefield, we have Bulkhead and Wheeljack struggling with Skyquake, who's opening fire upon them, and they have to take cover behind rubble. We then see Breakdown and Knockout actually drag a defeated Bumblebee. You might say, why was Bumblebee getting jumped in this one? And I'm going to say it's really because Knockout did come back from his repairs of Tidal Wave. And this is where Megatron, they pretty much bring Bumblebee to Megatron, and he's about to kill him. However, Sludge tears his way through a horde of Viacons and Insecticons, transforms, and rams right into Megatron, or pretty much rolls full force into Megatron, getting him off of Bumblebee and biting his arm. We then go back to Grimlock versus Predaking, while Slug is pretty much keeping Dreadwing under wraps. They both go back and forth, even transforming into their respective beast forms, where Grimlock is actually getting overwhelmed by Predaking's Ghidorah form. And Megatron finally manages to wrestle his fusion cannon out from the pin position and shoots Sludge back. However, Sludge utilizes some of the debris of the battlefield to tail whip, or pretty much tail whips it right into Megatron's face. Megatron, obviously staggered by the sheer force of it, then tries to unleash another fusion blast. However, Sludge tackles that exact hand, bites it, and then, fully pins Megatron right under him. This is where Snarl and Swoop pretty much descend upon Predaking while he has the upper hand on Grimlock, with Snarl kicking him back and Swoop wrapping around Predaking's waist, constricting him. And they ask him, "What's the plan, boss?" And Grimlock simply states, "We're going to kill him. No hesitation. Don't hold back anything." And so Grimlock transforms and actually tears the middle head of Predaking off completely. This is where Snarl takes out his wrist blades in his robot form and cuts off one of the other heads, and this then goes to Swoop, who coils his other part of his body around the head and causes it to explode. They then begin to tear Predaking's remains apart. And you might say, why am I killing him off here? And that's because I have bigger plans for the future, and pretty much this makes the most sense, as Slug pretty much watches from the back saying, "Yeah, that's how we do it. That's how we monster bots roll." And Dreadwing tells him it's a shame that you won't be able to enjoy this for long, as his twin will reclaim him and kill him. And this is where Slug simply smacks him in the back of the head and says, "Pipe it, you might be here longer than you think." And then we head back to the warship. Optimus straight up uppercuts Shockwave right into the wall. And I'm talking about full G1 style uppercut. This then allows Arachnid to shoot her webbing and pin Shockwave against the wall. However, adding its own sadistic irony to it, RC then shoots Shockwave right in the optic, yet again knocking him unconscious. Now you might say, well, wouldn't he be dead here? I'm going to say if he survived the first one, let's just say he survived the second one. So Optimus makes his way onto the battlefield, and the Decepticons are all but rounded up and defeated, including Skyquake. However, Optimus points his fusion gun, or his ion, cannon, at Megatron, who's down by Sludge, with Grimlock running over, with the rest of the monster bots saying, finish him now. However, Megatron smiles and tells his remaining Decepticons for a peaceful retreat. Understanding Optimus's morals, Grimlock straight up tells Optimus, "Don't you dare. Don't you do it." However, this allows Megatron to get up, transform, and fly off. This then allows Skyquake and the rest of any flying Vehicons to transform and fly off. And this is where Optimus tells him to let him go. And Slug reluctantly has to give Dreadwing over to the Decepticons, as this is a peaceful retreat. Now, back at base, Optimus feels like he accomplished a lot after being able to get the icon coordinates. However, Grimlock grabs him and throws him against the wall, telling him he could have killed Megatron right then and there and ended this. And this is where Optimus says killing him wouldn't have mattered. He still called a peaceful retreat, and he won't compromise his morals for the rest of them. And this is where Grimlock notes that Optimus is a soft-hearted fool. However, before Grimlock could likely lash out more, RC places a hand on his shoulder, telling him, hey, we got everyone back. We got Optimus back and the coordinates. You did great. So which he does calm down, but it still feels like a hollow victory at best. We then go over to Mech HQ, where Starscream and Silas are looking at the latest creation, Macrosaurus. And this is where Starscream kind of looks disappointed. And Silas looks at him like, what, aren't you pleased about what's happening? And this is where Starscream says, well, giving you guys Energon and then the creature's DNA, it's just, what, it's not up to your standards? To which Starscream says, well, that's not the case. This one is just idiotic at best. And then look at the other ones we created. Nita is overly attached, and despite her energy manipulation, she's straight up too kind. Tian Lung is a bit aggressive and rebellious, but yet barely listens at the same time. Then there's Sarkostian, who's straight up bloodthirsty and cannot even be controlled unless we force it into submission. And then there's Tornak, almost perfect, but yet has a mind of its own, free will and everything. And Starscream then points to one more chamber. Well, almost all of them. This one is just perfect indeed. When can we test him out? To which Silas says, very soon indeed. Would you like to see the rest of them first, or see the other creations we made? And so Silas takes Starscream to a room where he has these automated Vehicons and even Nemesis Prime. Starscream says, yes, very pleasing. But whatever, we go back to the Autobot base, and this is where the episode New Recruit actually happens a bit earlier. And you see, with the Autobots now kind of getting ready for everything that's going to come here, along with the Decepticons who have to make repairs, this is where Grimlock, Sludge, and RC both come back to the base and tell Optimus they found some people he may actually like. To which Optimus pretty much looks in shock, then smiles as he says, welcome to Team Prime, my old friends. And this is where we see High Tide, Quick Shadow, and Smokescreen. Now, the little bit of lore behind these guys is that they're all special forces, not elite guards. And to which this is where Wheeljack simply notes that it's been a while since I've seen your kind around here. How you been, High Tide? To which High Tide says, busy. We were tracking down another Decepticon, but lost him. And apparently he was heading towards this way. So we thought we kind of check in on you guys. To which Bulkhead says, so are you guys staying? We could use the help. And this is where Quick Shadow notes, yes, it is quite fortunate that we are here. We are planning to stay for a while, and is that a Decepticon among your ranks? To which Arachnid simply states, don't read too much into it. She's here because of her own conditions at the moment. Speaking of which, this is where Smokescreen pretty much walks over to the rest of the monster bots, and Arachnid simply joins them. And well, all 6 of them pretty much explain how they kind of got like this. And Smokescreen was likely even a bigger fanboy of the Dinobots, but when they're straight up kaiju and they look awesome, it just makes it better, right? Now, we then head over to the Decepticon warship, where the Decepticons are pretty much just getting themselves finished up, with Knockout having likely been a much better medical officer and showing his talents a lot more, has just fixed Shockwave's optic and pretty much fixed Shockwave in general. And this is where Megatron simply asks Shockwave to look at the remains of Predaking. How the heck are you going to make up for this? To which Shockwave says he actually has an idea. He can move some of his equipment from Cybertron to Earth, but he is going to need a location for it. To which Megatron says, very good. take the Decepticons or take the Insecticons and maybe a few for experimentation to become another super soldier, to which Hardshell is the one to volunteer for this. And well, he pretty much leaves with a few Insecticons with Shockwave. It then pans over to Soundwave walking in and simply showing Megatron the next Iacon coordinates, to which Megatron then contacts Tidal Wave and sends him to the Arctic so that he can get one of the first few relics. And then we then see him send Breakdown and Knockout, just like in canon, or just like in canon with Knockout, to New York City. However, this is not where we pretty much leave off. We go to New York City, and everything is calm and peaceful. However, Starscream's jet appears overhead, holding a canister, and this is where he states, "Let the experimentation begin." And as he drops the canister, we get a closer look at it, and two eyes are simply seen with the objective of destroy and consume everything. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends, and y'all have a blessed day. Peace.